Hello, dear friends. As I promised you yesterday, that today we shall go with Andrew Marvell's poem Thoughts in a Garden. Before we go with the stanzas of this poem, let me introduce you something about the poem. What is the poem about? So, The Garden, written by Andrew Marvell, is one of the most famous poem written ever by him. And Andrew Marvell belongs to the 17th century. This poem was first published in Miscellaneous Poems. The title of the publication was Miscellaneous, and it was published for Robert Boutler in 1681. And this was the first edition. And this collection was first sent to press by Mary Marvell, who claimed that she was the widow wife of Andrew. She claimed that she was Andrew's widow. This poem is a romantic poem, and the poet's personal feelings and emotions are told throughout the poems. We see that the poet is very much annoyed with the materialistic life that we are living in, that we are enjoying. He takes us away from this physical world to the world of nature. In the later years, you see that Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, and other romantic poets, they also talked about the nature. Here, Andrew Marvell is precursor of the romantic revival. That is, he also loved nature too much, and he discarded the materialistic life. So, here he explains the importance of nature, and this is explained throughout the poem. This poem, The Garden, or we can also call this poem as Thoughts in a Garden. Both the titles are clear or the same. So, this poem is divided into 9 stanzas, each of which contains 4 rhymed couplet of iambic pentameter. So in each stanza we have the couplet. Couplet, the 2 lines in a poem rhyming each other. So here we have 4 couplets, rhymed couplets, and they are written in iambic pentameter. So far subject, as I told you, that is that the tranquility of retirement from public life. So the poet also believes in peace. He wants to live in tranquility, away from the public life. And therefore, most critics associate these poems' content with Marvell's own retirement from his position as tutor to Mary Fairfax. So, Andrew Marvell also took retirement from his job, And after taking retirement from his job of tutorship or other things, he moved towards the nature. And there he found the real pleasure and enjoyment. Mary Fairfax, whose father was Thomas, and he was a general in Oliver Cromwell's army during the English Civil War. So, as we know that there was a civil war, and that period is also called as Commonwealth period from 1649 to 1660. And at that time, the England was governed or ruled by Cromwell, Oliver Cromwell. So here the poet used to teach as a tutor to the daughter of Thomas, who was a general in Cromwell's army. So here we also see the poet's view that he criticizes, he disregards the war also. He doesn't appreciate the fights or the battles, but he wants to take repose or rest in the lap of nature. So now let's go with the stanzas of this poem. As we have discussed that there are 9 stanzas, and each stanza has 8 lines. All right. So in this lecture today, we shall try to understand the 4 stanzas of this poem, and the other 5 stanzas will be discussed in the next lecture. So let's go with the stanza 1. How vainly men themselves amaze to win the palm, the oak, or base, and their unseasoned labors see, crowned from some single herb or tree, whose short and narrow verged shade does prudently their toils upbraid, while all flowers and all trees do close to weave the garlands of repose. So as we discussed that there are the rhyme, there are the 4 couplets in every stanza. There are 8 lines, couplet is of 2 lines, and every couplet is rhyming each other. So just we see amaze in the first line. In the second line we have base, amaze, base, see, tree, shade, upbraid, close, repose. So stanza is divided into 4 couplets, and couplet has its rhymed. All right. Let's go with the meaning of this stanza. What is there? So here in the first stanza, the poet is talking about the people, about the men who are engaging themselves in earthly affairs, and they are working very hard, they are running after, they have the competition in order to win the prizes and awards. So how vainly men themselves amaze. The man is doing uselessly the works, the toils, in order to win the palm, the oak or beech, in order to win the palm trees, oak trees, and beech as the symbol of award. So these are the trees, and trees are the objects of nature. So the man tries very hard, man is very proud, having won the awards or the prizes of these trees symbolically, and their unceasing labors see. And what we see? The man's unceasing labor, that is the hard or that is spontaneous, continuous labor without any stop. The man is laboring, man is working. For what? In order to be awarded. Crown means awarded, ताज. उस ताज को प्राप्त करने के लिए, ताज किस चीज का? Crown of some single herb or tree. Either it is of herb or it is of tree. So in order to achieve this crown, man is doing continuously hard work, and he doesn't bother about the nature, but he is working materialistically, getting more and more money, trying to get more and more prestige and image and dignity, etc. Whose short and narrow was shade, does prudently their toils upbraid. So, but what we see, that the narrow and short shadow of these trees, the poet means to say, is much more than the toils that have been brought up, the labor that have been brought up by the man. So, in comparison with the labor or the toil of the man, here the shadow of these trees are better and are richer. While all flowers and all trees do close to weave the garlands of repose. And what we see then, other flowers and other old trees, they all close themselves in order to weave the garland of repose. So when the flowers and trees are there in the garden, what they create? They create the repose of, they create the garland of repose. They create the garland of rest, garland of peace in the garden. This is what in this stanza. So here the poet means to say how power and authority will close upon its own malevolent nature once. So what we see in that stanza, love for nature is there, and the beautiful imagery of the garden, that is before our eyes. That is, we can enjoy. Just like we have the flowers, we have the trees, we have the oak. All these are the words or the vocab that takes us towards the garden. And the garden is the symbol of tranquility, symbol of peace, and symbol of rest and repose. Now come with the second stanza. Fair quite have I found thee here, and innocence thy sister dear. Mistaken long I sought you then, in busy companies of men. Your sacred plants, if here below, only among the plants will grow. Society is all but rude to this delicious solitude. Fair quite. Here in this stanza, what we see, that there are certain words which have been personified by the poet. The first one is fair quite. beautiful quiet. Have I found there thee here? So the poet says, oh, beautiful quietness, peace, calmness, I have found you here. That is, in the garden, we have the beautiful peace, complete peace. And innocence is also there. And innocence, again personified and said to be the sister of quietness. So both quietness and innocence are sisters. So the poet says that I have found both of you here in the garden. Mistaken long I sought you then in busy company of men. Yeah, I was mistaken. I was wrong when I was trying to find you in the busy company of men, in the world, in the people who are busy. So there I tried to find you, but you are not there. You are in this garden. So quietness, peace, and innocence both are in the garden. Mistake. Your sacred plants, if here below, only among the plants will grow. So here below in the garden, we should we should imagine that the poet is in the garden and he is reposing. He is lying there and enjoying the calmness, peace, the beauty, the fragrance, everything of the garden. So he says, your sacred plants, if here below. So in the garden, the sacred plants have been grown up. Only among the plants will grow. So they will grow only among these plants. They cannot be found in the society. They cannot be found in the company of man. Here in the garden, only the plants will grow, not the man. Society is all but rude to this delicious solitude. So now he compares the garden, the beauty of the garden, the innocence and quietness of the garden with the society. And he tells that society is nothing but a rude in comparison with the garden to this delicious solitude. The delicious solitude, that is that garden, delicious peace of the garden. So in the society, we have the hustling and bustling, we have the noise, we have the restlessness, we have the burning heads. So society itself is boring, is trouble, whereas the garden is full of peace and quietness, giving us the pleasure, delight, etc. Then come with stanza 3. No white nor red was ever seen, so amorous as this lovely green. Fond lovers, cruel as their flame, cut in these trees their mistress' name. Little, alas, they know or heed how far these beauties hers exceed. Fair trees, wheresoever your barks I wound, no name shall but your own be found. So, describing the beauty, calmness, peace of the garden, now the poet moves and he says that no white nor red was ever seen. So amorous. So, white and red are supposed to be the symbol of romance, symbol of sexual pleasures, etc. But here he says that they were never seen so amorous, so delightful, so pleasure giving, so sensational as this lovely garden, as this lovely green, lovely beauty of the garden. Then he says, fond lovers cruel as their flame, cut in these trees their mistress name. Fond lovers, पागल, पागल जो प्रेमी हैं. What we see that जो लोग गार्डन में घूमने जाते हैं वो क्या करते हैं कि पेड़ों के ऊपर उनको काट काट के खोद खोद के उनमें जगह बना के एंड दे राइट देयर ओन नेम्स in order to become immortal, that the others would see their names there. So these fond lovers, cruel as they are, so the poet calls them cruel because they are in their flame of love. They are in the fire of love, and in this fire, what they do, they cut the trees and write their names. So the poet criticizes it. The poet condemns that these lovers, these fond lovers, पागल प्रेमियों को ऐसा नहीं करना चाहिए. Cut in these trees their mistress names. So they write their mistress names by cutting or making a cut in these trees. So he doesn't like, the poet doesn't like this action of these lovers. Then he says, little alas they know or heed. कि काश ऐसा होता that these fond lovers would know that this is wrong and that the beauty of their beloved is no more, is not much more than the beauty of the garden. How far these beauties hers exceed, that they should have known that the beauty of the garden definitely exceeds the beauty of their beloved. Therefore, they must not make such cuts in the or such barks in the trees. Then he says, fair trees, O beautiful trees, wheresoever your barks I wound. कि by the way, if I make any cut or barks और मेक यू वाउंड, घायल अगर तुम्हें मैं करता हूँ, कहीं कट बनाता हूँ पेड़ पे, देन व्हाट आई विल डू, आई विल नॉट राइट द नेम ऑफ माई मिस्ट्रेस, बट आई विल राइट योर ओन नेम in that cut or in that bark. No name shall but your own be found, that your own name will be written by me in that bark that I make in your trees. So in this way, the poet is very angry with those who harms the trees just for their fun, just for their love, show off. Then let us come with the stanza 4. When we have run our passion's heat, love hither makes his best retreat. The gods that mortal beauty chase, still in a tree did end their race. Apollo hunted Daphne so, only that she might laurel grow. And Pan did after sinning's speed, not as a nymph but for a reed. So in this fourth stanza, we will see that the poet gives some biblical references also in order to prove that we must love the beauty or the peace of the garden, or that the garden is better than other materialistic or the worldly things. When we have run our passion seat, when we are too much passionate in a heat of love, love either makes his best retreat. So love also here makes the best retreat of loving the nature, of loving the trees. So he gives some examples of love affairs. That in the end, the love also reign after the trees or the garden. The goats that mortal beauty chase, those goats who ran after the mortal beauty, that is the earthly beauty, still in a tree did end their race. But what happened in the end? Because these goats ran after the beauty of the woman. But what happened? That these women were turned into the tree. And in the end, what these goats found, they also had to clasp themselves with the tree. The woman was not there. So the excess heat of love also leads the best retreat, that is the love for nature. Apollo, who also hunted Daphne, who also ran after Daphne, only that she might laurel grow. So what happened? Daphne also turned into laurel tree, and Apollo had to satisfy himself, clasping and clutching the laurel tree. She was turned into laurel tree. She grew as a laurel tree. And another example, another reference, that is Pan, who also did, who also ran after Syrinx speedily. But what happened? He also didn't find the nymph. But Syrinx was turned into a reed, and Pan had to satisfy himself with that reed or the tree. So in this way, the poet expresses his own feelings, thoughts, passions regarding garden. He loves the garden very much. And therefore he gives us the, once he depicts the garden, then he criticizes what the fond lovers do there in the garden, and then he stresses how the Cupid, that is the god of love, who is not actively at work to people fall in love, he also withdraws into garden for relaxation. That is, these biblical lovers, Apollo, Pan, and another one, that is goats, Apollo, Pan, and other goats, who ran after the mortal beauty. What they found? They did not found those mortal beauties, but they had to satisfy themselves with the trees, because these beauties were turned into trees. The goats who ran after earthly women whom they think beautiful find that their chase has ended in their getting hold of trees instead of women. They could not find the women, but they found only the trees. So first instance, that was of Apollo, who ran after Daphne, not in order that he should hold the laurel tree into which Daphne was to be transferred. So he wanted Daphne, but what happened? He had to satisfy himself with the laurel tree. Similarly, god Pan, he also pursued nymph, the nymph Syrinx, not in order to satisfy his lust, but because he wanted to get hold of a reed into which the nymph was to be metaphor. So this is what we see in these four stanzas of this poem, Thoughts in a Garden, written by Andrew Marvell. Thank you very much, friends. I hope you will enjoy this lecture and will try to understand the meaning of this poem and the other things regarding the poet and the poem. In our next lecture, we shall discuss the remaining 5 stanzas of this poem. Till then, bye bye. Thank you very much.